Rain hammered against the windows as Ethan pushed through the door of Bloom and Bean, a cafe he'd never noticed before despite walking the street for 3 years. Water dripped from his coat onto the worn wooden floor, and the warmth inside felt like an embrace after 12 brutal hours at the investment firm. Oh no! I'm so sorry! A ceramic mug shattered near his feet, dark liquid spreading across the floor. The girl behind the counter, maybe 25, with honey-colored hair escaping a messy bun, stared in horror, her cheeks flushing crimson. "It's fine," Ethan said, stepping over the puddle. "Really? I'm Mira. I'm new. I'm also apparently terrible at this." She grabbed a towel, nearly knocking over 3 more cups in the process. "What can I get you, besides a reason to never come back?" Despite his exhaustion, Ethan smiled. "Surprise me." He collapsed into a corner booth, loosening his tie. Through the window, the city blurred into streams of light and rain. His phone buzzed, another email from his boss. He ignored it. 10 minutes later, Mira appeared with a steaming mug, holding it with exaggerated care. "One house special. I promise I tested the structural integrity of this cup." The coffee was dark, almost black, with swirls of cream forming delicate patterns on the surface. It smelled unlike anything he'd encountered, earthy, with hints of vanilla and something floral he couldn't identify. "Thank you," he said, and she lingered for a moment, biting her lower lip nervously before retreating. The first sip stopped him cold. It wasn't just good. It was transcendent. Warmth spread through his chest, and the tension he'd carried in his shoulders for weeks seemed to dissolve. The caffeine hit differently too, not jittery but focused, like his mind was suddenly operating at a higher frequency. He finished the entire cup in minutes, feeling more alert and calm than he had in months. When he left, he pressed a generous tip into the jar, meeting Myra's surprised gaze. "See you tomorrow," he said. And he meant it. The next evening, despite the mountain of work waiting at home, Ethan found himself pushing through the cafe door again. Mira was wrestling with the espresso machine, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. "You came back," she said, looking genuinely shocked. "Best coffee I've ever had, even after I nearly baptized you in it. Especially because of that. Shows character." She laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that made something in his chest tighten. As she prepared his drink, he watched her move behind the counter. She was graceful in her clumsiness, if that made sense, like a dancer who occasionally forgot the choreography but made it charming anyway. "So what's your secret?" he asked when she brought his coffee. "This can't be regular beans." Her expression shifted, just for a moment, something guarded flickering behind her warm brown eyes. "Just care and attention, that's all." But Ethan had spent years reading people across boardroom tables, and he knew a deflection when he heard one. 3 weeks passed, and Ethan's evening ritual became sacred. No matter how late the meetings ran, no matter how many times his boss demanded he stay, he always made it to Bloom and Bean before closing. Mira had stopped apologizing for her accidents, mostly because Ethan had started catching falling cups and stepping in to help when the evening rush overwhelmed her. They developed an easy rhythm, their conversations growing longer each night. "Why investment banking?" she asked one evening, sliding into the booth across from him during a rare quiet moment. "Because I'm good with numbers and bad with people," he said. "Seemed like a natural fit." "You're not bad with people." She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "You're here talking to me, aren't you? Maybe you're the exception." The air between them shifted, charged with something unspoken. Myra's fingers traced the rim of her own coffee cup. She always drank while he did, he'd noticed, though hers looked slightly different, the liquid more golden than brown. "What about you?" he asked. "How does someone end up making magical coffee in a tiny cafe?" "It's not magical," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Just good ingredients." "Mira, He leaned forward. I've had coffee everywhere, Paris, Tokyo, Seattle. Nothing comes close to this. I'm more productive. I sleep better. Hell, I haven't had a stress headache since I started coming here. She stood abruptly. I should close up, but Ethan caught her wrist gently. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just curious. About you. About this. She looked down at where his fingers circled her wrist, and when she met his eyes again, something had melted in her expression. Can you keep a secret? Yes. She bit her lip, considering. Then she disappeared into the back room, returning with a small glass vial containing what looked like dried flower petals. Deep purple, almost black, with veins of gold running through them. My grandmother left me these, she said softly. They're from a plant that only grows in one valley in the Himalayas. She said they have properties. Nothing harmful, she added quickly. Just, they affect mood, energy, emotional balance. Ethan studied the vial, then her face. You're drugging your customers? No, it's completely natural, and the effects are subtle. You wouldn't even notice if you weren't paying attention. She pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. I shouldn't have told you. How many people know? Just you. And I'm trusting you won't. He cut her off by standing and closing the distance between them. Your secret's safe. But Mira, this could be huge. Do you realize what you have here? I'm not interested in huge, she said. I just want to help people feel a little better. Like you. Her eyes searched his face, and Ethan became acutely aware of how close they were standing. Close enough that he could smell the floral notes of her perfume mixing with the coffee-scented air. Why me? He asked. Why tell me? Because you keep coming back, she whispered. And because when you look at me, I feel like maybe I'm not as clumsy and broken as I think I am. Ethan cupped her face with one hand, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. You're not broken. You're extraordinary. When their lips met, it was soft at first, tentative questioning. But then Myra's hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, and the kiss deepened into something hungry and urgent. The cafe became their sanctuary. After closing each night, they'd lock the door and lose themselves in each other. Ethan learned the geography of Myra's body, the sensitive spot behind her ear, the way she gasped when he kissed down her neck, how her fingers dug into his shoulders when he pressed her against the counter. This is crazy, she breathed one night as he lifted her onto the prep table, scattering coffee beans across the floor. Probably, he agreed, his hands sliding under her shirt, tracing the curve of her spine. Should we stop? Don't you dare. She pulled him into another kiss, wrapping her legs around his waist. They made love surrounded by the scent of coffee and the mysterious flowers, her soft moans echoing in the empty cafe. Afterward, wrapped in his coat on the worn leather couch in the back room, Mira traced patterns on his chest. Tell me about the flowers, he said. Really? She was quiet for a long moment. My grandmother was a healer in Nepal. She said these flowers, they're called Santasha blooms, grow where happiness once lived. They absorb joy and peace from the earth and give it back to people who've forgotten how to feel it. Do you believe that? I didn't. But then I started using them, and I saw people change. Stressed executives would smile. Depressed students would laugh. And you? She looked up at him. You stopped looking like you were carrying the world on your shoulders. Ethan kissed her forehead. Maybe that's just you. Or maybe we're both magic, she teased. But their bubble of happiness couldn't last forever. The man walked into Bloom and Bean on a Tuesday afternoon, his expensive suit and calculating smile immediately setting Ethan's teeth on edge. He'd come from work to help Mira with the evening prep, an increasingly common occurrence. Charming place, the man said, looking around with obvious disdain. I'm Vincent Russo. I own Russo and Sons across town. We know who you are, Mira said coolly. Ethan had learned she could be fierce when protecting what she loved. What do you want? I want to know how a tiny cafe with a clumsy barista is stealing my customers. Vincent's smile didn't reach his eyes. People say your coffee is special. It's just good ingredients, Mira said. Is it? Vincent pulled out his phone, showing them a photo. One of the Santasha blooms, clearly taken through the cafe window. Because I've done my research, and I'm willing to bet the health department would be very interested in your special ingredients. Ethan stepped forward. That sounds like a threat. It's a business opportunity, Vincent said smoothly. Sell me the recipe, and I'll keep quiet. Refuse, and I'll make sure everyone knows about your little experiments. Get out, Mira said, her voice shaking. You have 3 days to decide, Vincent said, dropping a business card on the counter. Choose wisely. Mira didn't sleep that night. Ethan held her in his apartment, stroking her hair as she curled against his chest. I can't sell it, she whispered. It was my grandmother's legacy, and if someone like Vincent gets it, he'll mass-produce it, patent it, turn it into something soulless and commercial. Then we don't let him have it, Ethan said. But if he exposes me, he won't. Ethan's mind was already working, falling into the strategic thinking that made him good at his job. I have an idea, but you have to trust me. Over the next 2 days, they worked frantically. Ethan called in favors from his network, lawyers, journalists, food safety experts. Mira documented everything about the Santasha blooms. Her grandmother's notes, the traditional preparation methods, testimony from customers about the positive effects. It's a traditional remedy, explained the ethnobotanist Ethan hired. Completely legal if properly documented and not making medical claims. The issue is Vincent can claim it's an undisclosed ingredient. So we disclose it, Ethan said. That opens you up to copycats, the lawyer warned. Or, Ethan said, looking at Mira, we get ahead of the story. On the 3rd day, Vincent returned to find the cafe packed with people and cameras. A local news crew was filming, and several food bloggers were live streaming. What is this? Vincent demanded. A press conference, Mira said, standing behind the counter with Ethan at her side. We're introducing Santasha coffee, a traditional Himalayan wellness blend, to the public. Completely transparent about ingredients and effects. You can't. We already did, Ethan said. The story goes live in an hour. Traditional remedy used respectfully, with full documentation. We've got cultural anthropologists, herbalists, and very happy customers on record. A reporter thrust a microphone toward Vincent. Mr. Russo, is it true you attempted to extort this small business owner? Vincent's face went purple. I did no such. I recorded our conversation, Mira said, holding up her phone. You threatened to report me unless I sold you my grandmother's recipe. The crowd's murmur turned hostile. Vincent looked around at the cameras, at the people, and seemed to realize he'd lost. This isn't over, he hissed, but he was already backing toward the door. Yeah, Ethan said, wrapping an arm around Myra's waist. It is. That night, after the last customer left and the news crews packed up, Mira locked the door and turned to Ethan. You saved me, she said. We saved each other, he corrected, pulling her close. You gave me something to believe in besides spreadsheets and profit margins. She kissed him deeply, pouring all her gratitude and love into it. Take me home, she whispered against his lips. Ethan's apartment had become their real sanctuary. As soon as the door closed behind them, Mira was in his arms, their kisses urgent and consuming. I love you, she gasped as he lifted her, her legs wrapping around his waist. I should have said it before. I love you too, he murmured against her throat, carrying her to the bedroom. I fell in love over spilled coffee and secret flowers. They undressed each other slowly this time, savoring every moment. Ethan traced his fingers over her skin, memorizing every curve and valley. When they came together, it was different than before. Not just passion, but something deeper. a connection that went beyond the physical. "You're my magic," she whispered later, lying in his arms. "Not the flowers. You." "Maybe we're both under a spell," he said, kissing her shoulder. 6 months later, Bloom and Bean had expanded to 3 locations. The Santasha coffee had become a phenomenon, featured in wellness magazines, sought after by stress professionals, praised by herbalists for its ethical sourcing and traditional preparation. But Mira insisted on keeping the original cafe exactly as it was, clumsy service and all. "This is where it started," she told Ethan one evening as they sat in their usual booth after closing, "where I spilled coffee on a stranger and accidentally fell in love. Best accident of my life," Ethan said. He'd left the investment firm, using his skills to help manage the business side of Myra's growing empire while she focused on the coffee. They made a good team, her creativity and warmth balanced by his strategic thinking and business acumen. "I have a confession," Mira said suddenly. "Oh, that first night, when you came in out of the rain, I gave you a regular coffee. No Santasha blooms." Ethan stared at her. "What?" "I was nervous. I forgot to add them. So whatever you felt, whatever made you come back." She smiled. "That was just coffee. And maybe a little bit of us." He laughed, pulling her into his lap. "So the secret ingredient was you all along?" "No," she said, cupping his face. "The secret ingredient was you deciding to see past my clumsiness and come back. Everything else was just coffee." They kissed, surrounded by the familiar scent of their cafe, their dream, their life together. Outside, the rain had started again, tapping against the windows like applause. "Want to know another secret?" Ethan whispered. "Always. I would have come back even if the coffee was terrible." "Liar," she teased. "Okay, maybe not every day, but eventually." He grew serious. "You were the magic, Mira. You always were." She rested her forehead against his. "Then I guess we're both lucky you have terrible taste in coffee shops." "The worst," he agreed, and kissed her again as the rain fell and the cafe, their beginning, held them safe in its warm embrace. The Santasha blooms sat in their vial on the shelf, beautiful and mysterious. But Mira knew now what she'd always suspected. The real magic wasn't in the flowers. It was in connection, in vulnerability, in 2 lonely people finding each other over spilled coffee and taking a chance on something extraordinary. And that was the best secret of all.